In the quiet of the early morning, just before the world began to stir, Sarah lay in her bed, trapped in a haze between dreams and reality. The shadows of the room loomed large, twisting into grotesque forms as her heart raced like a beat in a suspense film. It was in this twilight of consciousness that she envisioned Jake, her stepbrother, strong and confident, yet tinged with an air of mystery that always left her breathless. What if he knew the thoughts that flickered through her mind at night? What if he could hear the unasked questions that hung heavy in the air between them? The intensity of her feelings wrapped around her like a silken cord, both alluring and suffocating. She could feel the weight of her heartbeat echoing in her ears, drowning out the sounds of silence. There they were, two souls intertwined by circumstance, yet separated by the fears that danced like fireflies in the dark. What if the bond they shared was not just one of family, but something deeper, something forbidden? Sarah shivered at the thought, pushing her face into the coolness of her pillow as sleep threatened to reclaim her. But she was drawn back to the memory of their last encounter, the air thick with electricity, a dance of glances that spoke volumes. They had laughed over a silly movie, stealing glances that lingered just a heartbeat too long. In those fleeting moments, it felt as though the world around them faded, leaving only the rhythm of their breath and the intoxicating pull of unspoken desire. With a start, Sarah opened her eyes, the brightness of day spilling in through the curtains, a stark contrast to the shadows of her dreams. She rolled over, the echoes of her mind still swirling like smoke, uncertain and haunting. It was just a dream, she reassured herself. Nothing more. But the remnants of those thoughts clung to her, weaving intricate tapestries of longing and curiosity. The sound of footsteps echoed in the hallway, pulling her from her thoughts. It was Jake, no doubt always an unpredictable element in her life. With the warmth of day creeping in, she felt compelled to confront the tangled web of feelings that surfaced. It was time to find clarity. Undoubtedly, he was charming, with a smile that could brighten the darkest of days. An easy laugh that melted away worry like morning dew under the sun. Yet beneath that charming facade lay an intensity that intrigued her, a complexity she hadn't fully grasped. Their relationship was a fragile dance, an intricate ballet of emotions that hovered just on the edge of chaos. As she swung her legs over the side of the bed and slipped into her favorite oversized hoodie, she steeled herself for whatever lay ahead. Today, she promised herself, would be different. No more skirting around the unspoken tension, she would confront it head-on. The tempting aroma of fresh coffee wafted through the air as she ambled down the hall, each step echoing her racing heartbeat. When she reached the kitchen, Jake was leaned against the counter, an easy smirk on his face. His hair tousled, eyes gleaming with mischief. Part of her wanted to envelop him in warmth, to share the secret thoughts that teased her mind. But what would he say? Would he understand, or would he retreat into laughter, leaving her feeling foolish? "Morning, sleepyhead," Jake teased, the lilt of his voice striking like a chord of a guitar. "I was wondering if you were ever going to wake up." "The day isn't going to wait for you." "Yeah, well, someone has to keep you out of trouble," she shot back, forcing a grin to hide the butterflies fluttering in her stomach. But inside, her pulse raced as their playful banter swirled with the weight of something more serious, a challenge begging to be addressed. Jake stepped closer, his gaze searching. "You okay? You seem a bit off." The sincerity in his eyes caught her off guard, stirring the chaotic emotions bubbling underneath her skin. With him so near, she could feel the warmth radiating from him, wrapping around her like a spell. It made her heart race and crave something she couldn't quite put into words. "Just tired," she deflected. "Long night." He nodded, concern flickering across his face, but it quickly morphed into that familiar, playful glint. "You know, I'm always around if you need to talk. We could play video games later or just hang out, whatever you want." Those words floated in the air, an overwhelming urge pressed against her mind to unravel the mystery of their bond. "Jake," she began, the word hanging heavily between them. "Do you ever think about what it means to be us? I mean, really? Think about it?" Jake's brow furrowed, his teasing demeanor faltering as if a sudden gust of wind had knocked him off balance. "What do you mean?" Her heart hammered in her chest as she pressed on. Like, is this just being step-siblings? Or is there something more? More than friendship? More than family? His eyes widened slightly, the laughter fading as realization washed over him, a storm brewing in the depths of his gaze. They both felt it, the undeniable chemistry that blurred the lines between playful teasing and deeper feelings. "I don't know, Sarah. I've thought about it," he admitted, his voice quieter now. A wave of vulnerability crashed over her as she dared to tread deeper. "I mean, it's complicated, right? We're not just friends, but we're not... Well," she hesitated, searching for words that might capture the wild emotions churning inside her. It was as if the walls shook with unspoken tension, the kitchen suddenly feeling too small, too constrictive. Silence stretched between them, soaring high like an unsupported bridge, daring either of them to take that initial step across into uncertain territory. "I guess I've thought about it too," Jake confessed, his gaze steady as he searched her eyes for a clue to the truth lurking beneath the surface. "It's not easy to navigate what we have, but..." "But what?" The answer hung in the ether, yearning to be said. The unexpressed and unresolved feelings lingered, brewing like a storm ready to burst forth. As Sarah opened her mouth to respond, the moment shattered around them, an annoying ding of the microwave in the background, suddenly cutting through the charged atmosphere. Frustration bubbled up inside her as she stifled a sigh. "Might be best to focus on breakfast first, huh?" Jake suggested, his famous smile returning as if a switch had been flicked back to normalcy. But they both knew something had changed. Something crucial had shifted, igniting a fire that could no longer be extinguished with simple laughter or playful quips. The connection between them lay bare, the uncharted terrain of their relationship laid out like an intricate map waiting to be explored. With a nod, she played along, but in her heart, she had planted the seeds of a conversation that would blossom later. The clash between their laughter and the storm of their emotions set the stage for the challenges that lay ahead, the tangled pathways that could either bring them closer or tear them apart. As they moved through the motions of the morning, the secret between them pulsed, waiting for the perfect moment to surface again. Today would be different. There was no turning back now. Each fleeting glance, every light touch became laden with unspoken possibilities, igniting a tension that would soon demand to be addressed. In this dance of perilous curiosity and familial connection, each moment held a potential that thrilled and terrified her. Today, the hidden truths that lingered in the shadows would find a way into the light. Sarah knew one thing: she was not ready to lose what they had, but she was equally unprepared for what lay ahead, mixed into a catalyst that would lead to an explosive revelation. Unraveling secrets. The sun's warmth seeped through the kitchen window, but Sarah felt a chill trail down her spine as she moved methodically through breakfast preparations. The air hummed with unexpressed words and hidden emotions, a tension that sliced through the mundane tasks of pouring cereal and brewing coffee. Just moments ago, the laughter had felt easy and light, but it had all shifted into something elusive and heavy. As Jake pushed a chair back and sank into it, stirring his own bowl, Sarah caught herself watching him too intently. His mouth curved into a smile as he playfully pretended to drop a spoonful of cereal into his lap. But even in those light-hearted antics, she saw something deeper reflected in his eyes, the same mix of curiosity and caution that mirrored her own. "Hey, let's go for a walk after breakfast," he suggested suddenly, a spark of spontaneity in his tone. "It's too nice a day to be cooped up in here." The suggestion tugged at something within her, a sense of adventure, an opportunity to break through the icy facade they had unintentionally erected. "Sure, sounds good," she replied, trying to sound more casual than she felt. The minutes dragged as they finished their meal, the silence filled with the clinking of silverware and the soft rustle of magazine pages. For Sarah, every sound pierced the space like a reminder of the conversation that hovered just out of reach. She felt both trapped and exhilarated, a syncopated rhythm of fear and longing drumming in her chest. Finally, they made their way outside, where the sunlight enveloped them like a warm embrace. The world seemed bright, everything blossoming in a riot of colors as new life unfolded in the spring air. But as Sarah stepped onto the path winding through the trees, she felt the immense weight of their unspoken words settle in her heart. "What do you want to talk about?" Jake asked, his voice low, breaking through the silence. "What makes you think I want to talk about something?" She deflected, her heart thrumming faster. She turned her head, focusing on the nature around them, pretending that the trees held all the answers. "Because you've been acting a little different," he replied, slightly teasing yet undeniably serious. "I thought we were going to be real with each other." Her breath hitched as he placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. The simple contact sent shivers coursing through her body, igniting a warm blush across her cheeks. "It's just," she began but faltered, the words choking in her throat. "Just what?" Jake pressed, his eyes piercing, urging her to open up. Taking a deep breath, she knew she had to dive in, to peel back the layers that had been keeping them apart. "Fine. It's just that I feel like there's so much more between us than just this." She gestured vaguely between them, her stomach flipping with anticipation. Jake's gaze pierced through her, revealing a glimmer of understanding mingled with confusion. "What do you mean, more? Are you talking about our relationship as step-siblings? Because that's complicated." "Yeah, it is," she exclaimed, surprising herself with the force of her emotions. "But that's exactly what I mean. It's complicated, and we're ignoring it." He stopped walking, turning to fully face her. "So, what are you suggesting? That we just pretend it doesn't exist?" "No," she said, shaking her head vigorously. "I just think we need to talk about it. I mean, I can't be the only one feeling this way." Jake's expression hardened for a moment as he wrestled with his thoughts. She could almost see the gears turning in his mind, processing what she had said. But before he could respond, an unexpected noise pulled both their attention, an unexpected rustling in the bushes nearby. "Did you hear that?" Jake whispered, glancing towards the sound. "Yeah," Sarah whispered back, her heart racing for an entirely different reason now. Just as curiosity piqued, a rabbit darted out from the underbrush, leaping away into the meadow. A bubble of nervous laughter escaped her. "Just a rabbit," Jake said, the tension breaking momentarily. But even as they resumed walking, that adrenaline rush bubbling beneath the surface left her feeling vulnerable once more. "Anyway," she said, forcing casualness into her voice, "about what we were saying." But Jake interrupted. "Do you think it's possible for something like this to exist without complications?" "I mean, it's us." "I don't know," she shot back, frustration creeping into her voice. "I just feel like we have this connection, and it's not just because we're family." His gaze softened as he searched for the right words. "Sometimes I think about how strange it is. We're practically tied together, yet there's something that feels so much deeper." She nodded, feeling a surge of validation. "Exactly. So why not explore it? Why not figure out what it means?" As the words left her mouth, Sarah realized how brave she was being, how much she was willing to delve into the unknown, despite the fear that threatened to drown her. The moment hung in the air, suspended in time like a pendulum waiting to swing. "Okay," Jake finally said, the weight of their moment pressing in. "Let's explore it. Together." Before Sarah could respond, a sudden gust of wind swept through, the trees rustling leaves like whispers in a secret language. It felt as if the universe itself were conspiring to nudge them forward, urging them to take that brave leap into the unknown. In that moment, a sense of exhilaration washed over her, mingling with lingering trepidation. "You mean it? You really want to figure this out?" "Yeah," he replied, his tone resolute. "But it has to be honest, no holding back." They walked on in contemplative silence, and Sarah's mind raced with possibilities. What could this mean for them? What came next? A rush of excitement echoed through her as she envisioned a world where boundaries blurred and emotions flowed freely. As they ambled further into the woods, the trees seemed to draw closer, wrapping them in an embrace designed to shield them from the outside world. Sarah's heart thrummed with the rhythm of the unknown, a dance of anticipation building with each step they took together. But as the branches intertwined above, they also masked a hidden danger, groaning beneath the surface, the truth that lay, cold and unyielding, waiting for the moment to reveal itself. Suddenly, with the depth of their revelation hanging in the air, Sarah heard a faint rustle behind them. She turned hastily, her heart racing as her instincts kicked in. The unease returned, pricking at the edges of her mind like a warning bell. "Jake, did you hear that?" she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. His expression sharpened, the playful facade disappearing. "Yeah, I did." They stood there silently for a moment, tension stretching thick between them. The air held secrets, the trees shielding them as they both instinctively took a step back, eyes darting to catch a glimpse of what lurked in the shadows. "Maybe it's just another animal," Jake suggested, trying to mask the growing concern in his tone, but they both knew better. Suddenly, an urgent flutter erupted from the undergrowth, and before they could react, a figure stepped into the light. It was a girl, her wide eyes darting nervously from Sarah to Jake. "Help, please," she gasped. Breathless and wild, the unexpected appearance sent shockwaves through Sarah's system, the earlier rhythm of her heart now punctuated by confusion and fear. "What happened?" Jake asked, his demeanor instantly shifting into protective mode. "There," she began, but before she could finish, an angry shout echoed from beyond the trees, slicing through the air like a knife. "Get back here!" The yelp. Girl's expression twisted in fear, mirroring Sarah's own rising panic. "I need to hide! They're coming for me!" Jake glanced at Sarah, their earlier conversation forgotten as the reality of the situation crashed over them like a tidal wave of adrenaline. There was no more room for exploration of emotions, only survival. "Quick, this way!" Jake urged, pulling the girl by the hand through the trees, and Sarah followed close behind, heart racing. The path twisted and turned, leading them away from the looming danger. But as they dashed forward, uncertainty settled in. Who were they? What had she gotten herself into? "Do you have somewhere to go?" Jake asked, shoving branches out of their path. The girl shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. "No, just please don't let them find me." As the three of them raced deeper into the forest, Sarah couldn't help but feel the weight of the moment shift once more. This was no longer about secrets and feelings hidden beneath the surface. This was about life and safety, about choices that carried heavy consequences. They pressed on, the thrill of the unknown morphing into pure terror. The daylight faded as they slipped deeper into the woods, but even in the dimming light, hope flickered, a fragile ember waiting to ignite amidst the chaos, the chase. The trio darted deeper into the woods, adrenaline coursing through Sarah's veins like wildfire. The uncertainty of their surroundings gripped her mind as she glanced back, half expecting the unknown pursuers to emerge from the shadows. At any moment, the girl, whose name they still didn't know, stumbled slightly, her breath hitching with fear and exhaustion. "Can you run?" Jake called to her, his voice steady but laced with urgency. He took her hand, urging her forward. "We need to keep moving!" "I'll try," she gasped, determination flickering in her eyes. But the panic was undeniable, evident in the way her body trembled. Sarah pressed on, but in that moment, the weight of their reality crashed down upon her. Who was this girl? Why were they chasing her? Questions swirled in her mind, a tempest that threatened to overwhelm her as they dodged branches and roots that threatened to trip them up. But their safety depended on survival. As the trees thickened, around them the sun's light grew dimmer, shadows twisting into menacing shapes. Anxiety pooled in Sarah's stomach. She had never been chased before, never felt the fear of being hunted. What if they found them? What were they capable of? "We need to find somewhere to hide," Jake shouted over his shoulder, urging them deeper into the forest. "There has to be somewhere nearby." "I saw an old shed up ahead," the girl breathed, desperation creeping into her voice. "It's not far." "Led the way." Jake responded. He glanced at Sarah, his expression a mix of determination and shared fear. They were in this together, and that thought bolstered her resolve. Bursting through a thicket, they emerged into a small clearing. In the distance, the outline of a decaying shed loomed, half concealed by overgrown weeds and tall grass. There! Sarah pointed, and they hurried toward it, picking up speed. The closer they got, the more foreboding the place looked. The weathered wood was splintered, and the roof sagged under the weight of years. Jake pushed the door open, creaking on rusted hinges, and they tumbled inside, breathless and wide-eyed. "Quick, close it," Jake urged, shutting the door behind them. The shed smelled of mildew, dust motes dancing in the sparse beams of light that seeped through cracks in the walls. The inside was cluttered with forgotten tools, cobwebs stretching across the corners. "Okay, we need to stay quiet," Jake whispered as they all huddled in the shadowy interior. "We'll listen." Heart pounding in her chest, Sarah's thoughts raced. Images of blurred faces and angry shouts filled her mind. Who was coming for the girl, and why? For a few moments, they remained silent, the shadows stretching ominously around them. The sound of rustling leaves echoed outside, sending chills down Sarah's spine. The tension grew like a living entity, palpable and suffocating. "Do you have a name?" Jake asked the girl, breaking the silence in a soft voice. "We can't keep calling you the girl." "Lila," she replied, her voice shaking. "Lila Brooke." "Okay, Lila, can you tell us?" Jake began, but a loud shout interrupted him. "Where did you go?" A harsh voice boomed from outside. "You can't hide forever!" Panic surged through all three of them as they held their breath, hearts pounding in synchrony. Jake exchanged a fraught look with Sarah, whose mind raced to the possibilities of who or what was out there. "Lila, who are they?" Sarah whispered urgently. "They're just people," she gasped. "But they don't want me to leave. I made a mistake. I didn't mean to draw attention to myself." Shouts echoed through the trees, harsh and accusatory. "Lila, you can't get away from us. Just come out." Tremors shot through Sarah's limbs, and she felt an overwhelming wave of empathy for Lila. The determined glow in her eyes had dimmed, replaced by flickering fear. "What did you do?" Sarah pressed, knowing every second counted. "I saw something I shouldn't have," Lila said, voice trembling as she hugged her arms around herself. "Some guys were dealing some dangerous stuff. I thought I could escape, but they found me. I didn't mean to get involved." "Dangerous stuff?" Jake echoed, processing her words like pieces of a puzzle that sought to fit together. "Drugs, I think." "I don't know exactly what it was. Just something illegal," Lila admitted, tears glistening in her eyes. "I tried to get help. I thought someone might listen, but then they chased me." Before Jake could respond, the door rattled against the hinges, and they all froze, terror skittering up Sarah's spine. "She's in here!" Another voice yelled, angrier. "We saw her run this way!" "We need to do something," Jake whispered urgently. "Like what?" Sarah shot back, panic rising. "What if they find us? We can't let them." Lila's breath came in short gasps, her entire body vibrating with tension. "I can't go back. You have to help me." Jake's eyes narrowed in thought as he scanned the cramped interior of the shed. "If we stay quiet, they might pass us by. But..." With the door burst open and 3 sets of hostile eyes peered in. The figures silhouetted against the light looked rough and dangerous, faces hardened with anger. "We'll find you, Lila," one of them growled. "Search the place," another shouted, and the tension snapped. Jake reacted instinctively, grabbing Lila's hand. "We need to move now." Without a moment's hesitation, he raced toward the far wall, where an old window clung loosely in its frame. "Climb out," he urged, his voice low but urgent. "Quick!" As they scrambled for the window, the intruders edged closer, shoving aside boxes and tools in their frantic search. Fear coursed through Sarah's veins, urging her to act faster. She glanced back to see one of the men looking directly at them, an ugly smile forming on his face. "There they are!" he shouted. "Go, go, go!" Jake shouted, pushing Lila through the window first. "Now you!" He helped Sarah up, and just as she squeezed through, she felt a hand grab her ankle, yanking her back. With a gasp, she twisted around, struggling against the grip that held her fast. "Lila!" she shouted, desperate as she clawed at the window frame. Come on, Sarah, reach for me! Lila yelled, her eyes wide with fear. In one swift motion, Jake dove back through the window, grabbing Sarah's wrist with surprising strength. Let go of her, he shouted, pulling at her with everything he had. With one final push, they freed her, tumbling heavily onto the ground outside. Sarah felt the impact rattle her body as she gasped for air, the adrenaline spurring her onward. Run! Jake commanded, and they sprinted away from the shed, the echoes of angry shouts trailing them. They plunged deeper into the woods, the branches slashing her arms as they pushed through, breathless and terrified. Where do we go? Lila panted, her voice full of panic as they ran in a tangled line, her fear morphing into frantic energy. Keep going straight. We have to get far away, Jake gasped, glancing back to judge how close their pursuers were. The forest became a blur around them, each heartbeat a deafening reminder of the urgency weighing down on them. But pushing through the overgrowth, they were far from certain if they could escape the danger lurking behind them. Over here, Sarah shouted, spotting a narrow ditch covered with underbrush. With no time left to hesitate, she dove into it, followed quickly by Jake and Lila. They huddled together, hearts pounding in unison as they hidden beneath the protective veil of foliage. Do you think they saw us? Lila whispered anxiously, pressing against Sarah as they crouched low. Jake shook his head, his brow tightly knit with worry. I hope not. Time stood still as the three of them held their breath, listening intently. The muffled sounds of footsteps and angry shouts permeated the air, but they seemed to fade into the distance. Relief flooded Sarah momentarily, though the unease still gripped her stomach. After what felt like an eternity, the sounds of pursuit dwindled until silence enveloped them thick and heavy. Slowly, Sarah peered out from behind the bushes, but she saw nothing, only the soft rustle of leaves and the fading sun casting long shadows. I can't believe we just escaped, Lila breathed, disbelief coloring her voice. Jake let out a shaky laugh, one tinged with relief and disbelief. That was way too close. As they climbed out of their hiding spot, Sarah felt a newfound connection forming in the depths of their shared experience. But what do we do now? She asked, still shaken. Lila looked up, determination washing over her features. We need to find somewhere safe, somewhere they can't track me down. And then what? Jake questioned, eyes narrowing in suspicion. Are you sure you want to keep getting involved in this? It won't be easy, Lila replied, voice trembling slightly, but her gaze remained unwavering. But I can't go back. Not after what I saw. I'd rather fight than let them catch me. The gravity of her words settled around them, thickening the air. They had stepped beyond the realm of family and friendship. They had plunged into something undoubtedly dangerous, but perhaps also passionately freeing. All right then, Sarah said, steeling her spine. Let's figure this out together, whatever it takes. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting everything in hues of orange and purple, an unbreakable bond had formed amidst the turmoil. Together, they would navigate the danger ahead, facing what loomed in the shadows, the unknown that now lay before them, heart racing toward whatever fate awaited. Shadows in the dark as dusk settled over the forest. Shadows clawed at them from every direction. The trio paused to catch their breath, their hearts thundering like war drums in their chests. It was time to regroup, but uncertainty loomed in the air thicker than the twilight haze. Where do we go? Lila asked, her voice strained and steeped in worry. If they find us again, there's no telling what they'll do. Jake glanced around the area, trying to gauge their surroundings. We need to stick to the trees. They can cover our tracks if we keep moving silently. Is there anywhere nearby that you know of where we can hide? Not far from here, there's an old logging camp, Lila replied, glancing fearfully back toward where they'd come from. But it's more of a storage area, dilapidated stuff and tools left behind. It's definitely not safe. Better than nothing, Jake said, determination setting in his eyes. He turned to Sarah, who was trying to absorb everything that had happened. We can't just stay here. Let's move. As they began to tread carefully through the underbrush, the silence felt oppressive, each snap of a twig echoing like a gunshot in the stillness. The urgency of their situation weighed heavily on Sarah. Was she really ready for this? A mix of fear and fierce loyalty surged within her, pushing her onward. "Just keep an eye out," Jake whispered, leading the way with Lila close behind him. Sarah brought up the rear, scanning their surroundings, fully aware that danger could lurk behind every tree. The thought of the men chasing them clawed at her mind. Who were they? What did they want with Lila? The questions piled up, but all she could focus on was the safety of their little group, the bond that had formed through shared adversity. And it felt strange, exhilarating even, to be doing something so reckless, even if it was born from the frantic need to escape. Minutes felt like hours as they continued to navigate the dense woods until they stumbled upon the old logging camp. The area lay shrouded in darkness, the remnants of machinery half obscured by wild vines and thick underbrush. "Here!" Lila pointed toward a decaying shed, its door hanging gingerly by one rusted hinge. "We can use that." Without waiting for another word, they hurried inside. The space was filled with musty air and the scent of years gone by, a million forgotten stories layered beneath the dust. Jake quickly surveyed the surroundings. Nobody's been here in a long time. It might just work. As they entered, however, Sarah's senses heightened. She felt an inexplicable unease lingering in the atmosphere. "Is this really safe?" she wondered aloud. "It has to be," Lila responded, panting. "But we need to keep a lookout. They might know where I am." They settled down, finding corners in the clutter where they could huddle together. The shadows enveloped them, offering a strange sense of comfort among the chaos. As they caught their breath, Sarah's mind raced, suffused with a blend of fear and fierce determination. "How did you end up in that situation?" she asked Lila, desperate for answers. "What did you see?" Lila glanced around cautiously, as if the walls themselves were listening. "I was at a party. I overheard them, saying something about a big shipment." "Something illegal," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I thought it was just some local gang stuff, but it sounded serious, so I left. But then they started looking for me. They saw me." Realization struck Sarah. She was now involved in something dangerous, a world where secrets and shadows reigned supreme. "How did you even get involved with something like that?" she pressed, curiosity and concern mingling. "I didn't mean to," Lila replied, tears gathering in her eyes. "I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. I'm scared." Jake reached over and placed a reassuring hand on her arm. "You'll be safe now. We're here for you." The weight of those words settled over Sarah. A sense of camaraderie began to bind them closer. But even as they spoke, unease churned in Sarah's gut, and she could sense the imminent threat, lurking just beyond the edges of their small sanctuary. "Listen," Jake said suddenly, interrupting the stillness. "We need to strategize. If they catch up with us, we won't last long. We have to have a plan to get you away from here." "What do you mean?" Lila asked, panic rising once more. "I mean, we need to think of a way to safely get you somewhere else, somewhere they won't find you." Just then, a resounding crash echoed through the woods, sending a jolt of fear through all of them. Jake's eyes widened in surprise. "Did you hear that?" "Yeah," Sarah whispered, her heart racing. "What was that?" "Could be them," Lila exclaimed, fear coating her brow. "We have to hide." Quickly, they settled back into hushed silence, straining their ears to listen. Another crash followed, unmistakably louder this time, and footsteps trampled through the underbrush. Someone or something was getting closer. Jake crouched low, determination etched on his face. "We can't stay here. We need to move now. We have to find another way out." "Wait," Sarah whispered, darting a glance toward the door. "What if we go out the back? It might lead to some overgrowth we can lose ourselves in." "Agreed. Let's go," Jake said, signaling for them to follow him. They sneaked across the shed, and Jake gingerly pushed the back door open, holding his breath as it creaked ominously on its rusted hinges. It opened to a narrow alley of trees and thick bushes. "On three. 1, 2, 3, Jake whispered, and they darted out, hearts racing with the thrill of the escape. But as they skittered into the underbrush, they heard approaching voices, angry and accusing. "She's around here somewhere. We have to find her." It felt as though the ground was shaking beneath them, and panic washed over Sarah. "We can't let them see us." Lila kept glancing over her shoulder, terror evident in her eyes as they maneuvered through the thick undergrowth. "If they catch me, I'll be done for. We have to do something." Jake pulled Lila close while Sarah positioned herself behind. A tree, eyes darting with dread, adrenaline surging as they grasped for answers. Through the trees, flickers of movement hinted at the dark shapes of the men searching for Lila. She felt vulnerable, exposed, the weight of their anger palpable in the air. The raw power of the moment made her blood run cold. Suddenly, one of the men shouted, closer this time, his voice low and menacing. "We know you're here! Just come out and no one has to get hurt!" "Stay quiet," Jake hissed, clutching Lila tighter. The footsteps grew nearer, almost thunderous in their intensity. Sarah couldn't suppress her urge to bolt. Each passing second felt like an eternity, her breath quickening every time one of them drew closer. "Where is she?" Another voice echoed, dark and threatening. "She can't have gone far." Jake glanced at Sarah, his eyes serious. "We can't wait any longer." "Here," Lila said suddenly, pointing to a tree with dense branches. "If we can climb up, we might be able to hide until they pass." "That's the best shot we have," Jake agreed, urgency flaring in his voice. Without wasting another second, they scrambled up the tree, reaching for low branches. Lila climbed first, followed closely by Jake, with Sarah bringing up the rear. As they hoisted themselves up, Sarah's heart hammered against her chest. "Hold on tight," Jake encouraged, positioning Lila higher in the branches so she wouldn't be visible from the ground. They found a cluster of thick leaves that obscured them somewhat. Minutes crept by like sand in an hourglass, the fading light casting shadows that felt simultaneously comforting and suffocating. They held their breath, every small noise amplified, their focus razor-sharp as the men drew closer. "Look, I swear she went this way," one of the men asserted, frustration rippling through his voice. Sarah gripped the branch tightly, fear clawing at her. The realization that they were hiding from danger felt surreal, a game of life and death, and she wasn't sure she was ready for it. "What if they find us?" Layla whispered, voice shaking. "Just stay quiet and hold on," Jake replied, keeping his own nerves in check for Lila's sake. As the men moved below, searching the ground with frustrated intensity, one of them looked up, and Sarah held her breath. "Check the trees," he ordered, his voice dangerously close to a growl. The other men followed his lead, and Sarah's heart raced as they climbed closer, their silhouettes dark against the fading light. She could barely contain her panic. "It's now or never," Jake said, determination hardening his voice. With that desperate energy coursing through him, he leapt down from their perch, crashing onto the ground with a startling thump. "Run!" he shouted, and Lila and Sarah didn't hesitate. They scrambled down after him, feet pounding against the earth as they sprinted into the woods, adrenaline propelling them forward. "This way," Jake guided, maneuvering between trees and underbrush with deft agility. Behind them, shouts erupted as the men began to chase after them once again. "Stop! You can't escape!" "We have to split up," Sarah panted, glancing back to see how close they were. Fear surged in her veins, but now wasn't the time for fear. It was time to fight for their survival. "No," Jake insisted, urgency painting his words. "Stick together." But Sarah felt something shift inside her. The stakes had never been higher, and she couldn't shake the feeling that their only hope lay in deception, evading their pursuers by sheer will. As they pushed onward, Sarah spotted a rocky outcropping ahead, a natural formation that could offer them a temporary hiding place. "Over there!" she called, redirecting their path. They scrambled toward it, ducking low as they rounded the boulders, breathing heavily. "If we can just get behind these rocks, we might buy ourselves some time," Jake urged, glancing around frantically. Positioning themselves against the stone, hearts racing, they could almost feel the air vibrating with intensity. The pursuit continued. Shouts echoed closer, branches snapping under heavy feet. "They went this way, I can smell them." "I can't do this anymore," Lila gasped, trembling. Jake turned to her, fierce determination in his eyes. "You can. We can find a way out." We just have to stay strong. In that moment, one of the men came into view, his bulky frame moving with the confidence of a predator. "You're running out of time," he called, laughter laced with malice. "You can't hide forever." As they huddled close, Sarah caught a glimpse of their silhouettes growing nearer, darkness beginning to swallow the remnants of light. They were backed against a wall, or rather, a rock face, their breaths mingling with fear as they listened to. The men draw closer, adrenaline thrumming through their bodies. "Should we try to sneak away?" Sarah whispered, her mind racing between desperation and hope. But just then, the ground trembled beneath them, and the men seemed to close in like a tightening noose. With nowhere to go, they braced themselves for whatever would come next, hearts pounding in time against the relentless flood of fear. "Now!" Jake said suddenly, and with surprising ferocity, he pushed off from the rocks, charging through the narrow opening they'd barely spotted before. "Go! Go!" he yelled, and instinctively they followed him. Racing into the unknown, they burst through the gap into a clearing, the golden light of dusk flooding around them like a beacon. For one fleeting moment, the world dimmed, and hope surged within them as they fled free into the vast expanse. But as they sprinted into the dusky landscape, they were unaware of what awaited an entirely new danger that lurked just beyond the trees, waiting patiently amid the shadows, ready to reveal itself. The chase was far from over.